Unit 6 is about mobility. There are four things that the CNA should take from this unit. One, we want to encourage the residents to do as much as they can for themselves, right? We want to tell them what we're doing, let them make choices. We want them to have the confidence to do things. If they're on the same page as us, it's going to make our job a lot easier. We want to prevent deterioration in our residents. We need them to stay at the highest level of functioning, is our goal, right? We don't want them to deteriorate. So we're going to try and keep them as active as much as possible. We want to keep our residents safe. I can't say that enough. That's your number one job. The other thing you have to do as a CNA is you have to follow the care plan. Now, we haven't really said much about a care plan, but at this point is when we need to know what the care plan's saying. So when I say care plan, it is basically what I call the instruction manual for a resident. And we'll talk about it more in Unit 13. But the thing that it does is it tells us how the resident functions. Okay? So when somebody comes to the nursing home, we have to do an initial check care plan, and you as an aide will help with that. You'll know how they transfer, how they walk. Do they have a cane? Do they have hearing aids? Do they have glasses? Do they have dementia? Do they wear a brief for incontinence? Do they take themselves to the bathroom? How do they eat? And we'll do a check chart care plan, which will give us basic information. Then each individual department will meet with the resident individually, and they will evaluate the resident and fill out their part of the MDS. Now, MDS stands for Minimum Data Set. And what that is that's all the information we get from each department. And we bring that to an MDS coordinator who then puts the information into a care plan. She finds nursing diagnosis and actions and goals for each thing we need to work on to keep that resident at the highest level of functioning. So when you are needing to know how a resident does things like mobility, eating, bathing, grooming, all those things, the care plan is your instruction manual to know how to do that. Now, when we're talking about mobility, the first thing we need to talk about is body mechanics. Body mechanics is how to use the body correctly when moving residents or objects. Now, you have to realize that our goal is not only to keep our residents safe, but we need to keep ourselves safe as well. I worked at a clinic with neurosurgeons who operated on back, right? Our number one work comp claim was CNAs with back pain because they didn't use good body mechanics or they were lifting when they shouldn't have been, right? And so you need to make sure that you're using good body mechanics. We use big muscles. We use our legs and our glutes, our bottom, right? We bend at the knees, not at the waist. Our abs and our back are made up of a bunch of smaller muscles intertwined, and it's easier to damage those. Our quads, our hamstrings, and our glutes are big muscles, so always use the large muscles to lift. We want to use both arms. We want to have the person centered in between our arms and legs. We don't want to be off balance, right? We want to have good posture. This one's a hard one for me. I'm a sloucher, right? But we need to keep our back as straight as possible when we're lifting, not bending at the back. Do not twist. Twisting is what causes damage to the lower back. We need to keep the objects close. Now, this is not a time when we're moving people and ambulating people. This is not a time for personal distance, right? This is a time to be as close as we can. Because if we keep objects close to us, if we move as one object, You know, when we're getting somebody up, if we keep them close, it makes them move with us. If we lift them far away, it adds weight. It's a fulcrum, right? It adds more weight and makes them heavier. So we got to be close, guys. You got to get close. We need a broad base of support. We got to keep our feet shoulder width apart so that we have balance. Non-slid shoes. You should be wearing non-slid shoes, and your resident should be wearing non-slid shoes. Now, you've probably, if you've been in the hospital or had a surgery at a surgery center, they always put these slipper socks on you, right? And one side has tread. Well, they've gotten smart now. They have two sides with tread, but it never fails when you're taking a patient or a resident to the bathroom. The tread's on the top of the foot and there's no tread, so they're really slippery. They're really not good to use with residents in nursing home. We really need them to be using a non-slid shoe. We want to push, pull, or slide instead of lifting. That's more for objects. We want to be steady movements, right? We don't want to be jerking on them. We want to keep our muscles as strong as possible. Believe me, working as an aide, you're going to be using muscles. Most people after their first day at clinical are like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And it's because as an aide, you are physically going for 8 hours, right? You don't stop. Now, when we are moving residents, we need to know their weight-bearing status. So weight-bearing is how much weight we can put on our legs, right? So say you and I, if we're walking around without any assistance, we are full weight-bearing, meaning we can bear our own weight and walk. Now, partial weight-bearing is, say you break your leg and it's in a cast and you can't put weight on it, right? A lot of times our residents will have like a stroke and they can't bear weight on one leg because they're paralyzed. They have hemiplegia on one side of the body. And so they will be partial weight bearing. Sometimes people can bear a little weight, but they can for a transfer, but they can't bear full weight on their legs. When you come to clinicals or skills, you'll get a handout and it discusses the different levels of assistance needed. So if somebody can get up, go to the bathroom, get dressed, do everything themselves, we call them, they're independent. They don't need any help. You might have somebody just need you to get their clothes and their personal items so that they can do everything themselves. And that's just limited assist. You don't have to do a lot for them. Then you have assisted, and it could be just one person. One person can help them, and that's a little more limited, a little more assistance than not at all. And then you have excessive assist. This is usually 1 to 2 people doing most of the work for the resident. And then complete assist is they can't do anything for themselves and you have to do everything for them. So it's important that you understand those different levels of care or how much the residents can do for themselves. And really, we need to encourage them to do as much as they can for themselves. Now, it's always good if you have 2 aides, work as a team, right? It is so much easier, guys, to get people up with 2 people than 1. I know. You're going to run into these aides that have been aides for 30 years, I kid you not, and they don't want any help because they have their ways, right? Scientifically, it's been proven it's much faster for 2 people to do a job than just 1. Besides, sometimes when we're doing things by ourselves, we kind of cut corners and we forget to do things or choose not to do things. So if you have a good teammate, work together, right? You got to work as a team. Now, most facilities are no lift, safe lift facilities, meaning they physically don't want you to lift people, right? because the fact that so many aides have been getting hurt. Residents get dropped. I mean, we just got to keep everybody safe. You got to remember that we have people with IVs in nursing homes now, oxygen tubings, Foley catheters. They might have a drain from surgery. You got to be sure and watch that tubing. Know how to use the equipment at your facilities. When you come into skills, you're going to learn to use our lifts and our equipment. But when you go to the nursing homes or even clinicals, you're going to learn different equipment. When you go to work somewhere, they're going to have different equipment. Make sure you get trained on their equipment. Make sure you ask. If you don't know how to do something, ask. Have somebody show you. Don't ever act like you know something you don't know. I promise. You don't want to do that. Take your time. I know you're going to see when you go to clinical, these aides don't let any grass grow under their feet. They are running from the minute they get there to the minute they go home. Yes, you have a lot to do, but still take your time, be diligent on using good body mechanics, talking to your residents. It will make your job so much easier, I promise. Notice how the resident's doing. One of the things we as nurses get from aides is are they declining? Are they still okay to transfer the way they were transferring? Are they more confused? You guys are the ones that know these residents. You need to be telling the nurse when you see something that's just off, right? Are they weaker? Do their legs turn into noodles when they used to be able to stand up? Because we need to change the care plan for one, but we need to get them help. Maybe they need some physical therapy. Do they need a wheelchair now instead of just walking with a walker? There's multiple things we might have to change because of deterioration in the condition. Now, always use gravity. Gravity is your friend. Things like if we're moving people up in bed, put the bed in Trendelenburg position. That means we put the feet up and the head down, right? So it's easier to slide them up with bed. You're going to be doing a slide board at clinicals. It's easier if you're going from high to low. They slide easier, right? So when we're getting people out of bed, we can raise that head of the bed, take the legs to the side, and gravity, brings them up. Use gravity as your friend. Let's see. Now, you will be going over a transfer belt, a gait belt. I call this your safety belt. You'll get one. It's part of your class. It should always be on you when you have your uniform. I'm going to defer to the teachers showing you how to do that when you come into clinicals. The big thing is use them. I'm serious, guys. This is my stern warning. Use your gait belts. Repositioning in bed will also be covered in clinicals. The big thing is use that Trendelenburg and bend the knees. It makes them light. It takes the heavy part off the bed. Body alignment. We say somebody's in good body alignment if their nose lines with their toes, right? So if you have a resident in bed, they should be straight from their nose to their toes, right? They shouldn't be all cattywampus, legs here, arms here, head here. We want them in a nice straight line. So make sure you're observing good body mechanic or good body alignment when people are in bed. Now, I have a way that I memorize positions. So I always say if you're on your spine, you are supine, right? Spine, supine. If you're on your stomach, you are prone to get a neck ache, right? So on your stomach is prone. And then I always say kind of a princess farewell wave. You know how they cup their hand? It's kind of semi-sitting up, right? And so I always say Fowler's position, semi-sitting up, is Fowler's farewell. So supine on your spine, prone to get a neck ache, and Fowler's farewell, semi-sitting up. Now, there is Sims position that is also discussed in the book, and that's when you roll the resident to their left side and bend their right leg up. We use this position for suppositories and enemas. That's discussed later in the class. Now, when you're using wheelchairs, important things to remember is always use your brakes. I always say, lock your brakes, no free rides, because it never failed that I would not lock my brakes. I'd go to transfer somebody and the wheelchair would go sliding across the room because I didn't lock the brakes. So lock the brakes, no free rides. The other things to remember about wheelchairs is we don't go backwards in a wheelchair. We don't pull somebody backwards in a wheelchair unless you're going up an incline, right? Or backing into an elevator, okay? Or I'm sorry, going down an incline and backing into an elevator. So make sure you get them a blanket, and make sure that they know their push-ups to get the pressure off their bottom. We also use pressure relieving pads in their wheelchairs. Make sure you know how to put legs on wheelchairs and take them off. Everyone is different, so figure that out. You'll be playing with them at skills as well. Now, mechanical lifts. There is a total body lift, which is a Hoyer lift. We call it a Hoyer. It's a brand name, but it's a total body lift. And then there is sit-to-stand lift. A sit-to-stand lift is used for somebody who can bear weight on their legs, right? But a Hoyer lift is used to totally lift the body. You'll be seeing videos further on those after my video. So I'm not going to go into those very much. Just be safe. Remember that you need 2 people to operate a lift. And in the state of Kansas, you have to be 18 to push the button on the lift in a facility. Now, when you come to skills, we're going to have you do it, even if you're under 18, just for the practice, because you're being supervised. We'll be right there beside you when you're pushing the buttons, because I want you to know how to do the lifts, right? It's important to me. Biggest thing with mobility, guys, keep your residents safe.